Hola, hi everyone. This is Iverson from Tallinn University. Um, Welcome to my talk. It's my first time recording a video, so hopefully it will go well. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the PRC's national security agenda in Hong Kong. But before we get things started, let me just introduce my academic background. I'm a Hong Konger who is based in Estonia. It's my third year of studying study of cultures. In particular, I'm looking into the Sino-Hong Kong jurisdictional borders since the 2020 national security law. So essentially, I'm using um, border studies theories to reapproach the way of thinking about this extraterritorial national security law that was imposed onto Hong Kong following the end of the 2019 massive protests in the territory. So today, before going through into the details of the national security agenda, just in case you haven't get acquainted with the basics of Hong Kong, I'm going to give you a very brief introduction of Hong Kong before we go into the presentation. So Hong Kong is essentially a former British colony that was occupied by the UK since 1841. And there were different international treaties that made Hong Kong into the Hong Kong we know today. Instead of going through the history, so the cutting off point here is 1984 when the PRC and the United Kingdom signed an international treaty called Sino-British Joint Declaration, which guarantees Hong Kong's highly autonomous status after the handover in 1997 for 50 years, operating Hong Kong within this one country, two systems framework. So essentially, Hong Kong has its mini constitution, its own government, legislature, and also courts. For more in-depth understanding of significance, actually, it also has a de facto central bank, Hong Kong currency, and international travel documents. So except defense and foreign affairs, prior to the national security law in 2020, Hong Kong was largely, supposedly, free from mainland Chinese interference politically and economically as well. And after the 1997 handover, Hong Kong was renamed as the Special Administrative Region of the PRC. What does it mean? In particular, it almost functions like a state, but it's called the SAR because it has, for example, 14 overseas offices in the world with diplomatic immunities. I have checked the list of these offices. Unfortunately, there isn't any representation in Ecuador. However, they do participate in international organizations limited to state, for example, in the World Trade Organization and others, and also international organizations not limited to state. To give things into context in the Hong Kong one, then the national security issue, it actually it started to be a huge debate in Hong Kong in 2003 when 500,000 of people essentially came out to the street to go against the so-called Article 23, which is a domestic national security legislation. It was, however, withdrawn due to the popular movement that went against the article. And however, it was re-implemented in 2024 because of this national security law, giving the ground to silence the civic participation in the political debate, in the sense that there's no meaningful democratic opposition. And also, I think in the upcoming presentation, I will also highlight how the 2020 PRC imposed national security law is actually changing the whole dynamics between Hong Kong and the mainland PRC, and also the rest are the peripheral regions as well. So to begin with, I would like to start with how national security is being understood and how it has been expanded from the PRC mainland to the HKSAR. So actually dating back to 2015, the PRC already implemented its national security law that wasn't applicable to Hong Kong and Macau because Hong Kong and Macau there are different legal systems, and then they were not applicable. But Macau was another story. To summarize a little bit, the PRC has essentially named 20 fields of national security. It has been defined quite broadly, from political, military, homeland, economic, financial, to cultural, societal, science and technology, cybersecurity, and ecological resources, nuclear, overseas interests and outer space, deep sea, polar, biosecurity, artificial intelligence, and data. But I think in this presentation, I will only focus on the political side of the things, societal side of the things, and overseas interests. Because if you look into the adaptation of the Hong Kong national security law in 2020, there was this also broad understanding of national security. Essentially, it's political survival of the PRC, the Chinese Communist Party regime. But then they were framing it in the way it is connected to so-called secession, subversion, organization and perpetration of terrorist activities, collusion with foreign forces. And then in 2024, when they reignited this local domestic legislation, this safeguarding national security ordinance, it was also understood as a new tool to prosecute people who are framed as committing acts like treason, insurrection, espionage, sabotage, and external interference. And now I'm going through how that we configure Hong Kong's autonomous system. So essentially, it is touching upon the prosecution unit and the national security unit. If you look into the huge role that the Hong Kong police force was playing in the 2019 anti-extradition protests, you can see that it was almost acting like a paramilitary. And in the case of national security, actually this whole national security law is empowering the Hong Kong police force, or I call it the HKPF, to give new powers to arrest media professionals, democratic opposition, and also pressure civil society organizations to disband. And secondly, the Department of Justice, which is what we call also the Justice Ministry, also has a new prosecution unit focuses on national security related cases. And more importantly, even though according to the Hong Kong mini constitution, the Hong Kong Basic Law, there were a number of PRC state organs in Hong Kong, but under this new national security law, there was a creation of National Security Office, operated mostly by the PRC state officials, and also they have the immunity from the Hong Kong jurisdiction, meaning that the Hong Kong law does not apply to those officials. Then moving on to the question of judicial independence, as I introduced Hong Kong in the beginning, that Hong Kong was supposed to have its own legal system and its own courts and final court of appeal. But then because of this change of the nature of the executive branch in Hong Kong, there's a merge of national security apparatus and the Hong Kong SAR government. So in particular, the chief executive, or the CE, or you can understand de facto prime minister, he has a power to appoint Hong Kong judges for the national security cases, and also the CE himself has the power to issue a certificate to confirm whether an act involves national security. So in a way, the government actually has more power to override the judicial independence of Hong Kong. And also another concern, as I mentioned, institutionally, is how the Hong Kong National Security Committee becomes Hong Kong's de facto highest authority, because I can't show you the PowerPoint now, but then to put it very brief, the National Security Committee is also part of, or like more important than actually the senior officials of Hong Kong, because these officials, they are simultaneously being part of the National Security Committee, and they are directly reporting to the Hong Kong Liaison Office, which is part of the PRC State Council apparatus. Then I think to talk about extraterritoriality, which is also the main problematic area of the national security law, is that this whole HKNSL is expanding its legal space beyond the territory of Hong Kong. Why am I saying this? Because if you look into another feature of the national security law, now you have Justice Department having this national security unit, and also the Hong Kong Police Force, and then a separate National Security Committee and the National Security Office, which is part of the PRC state apparatus. And then now you have this national security hotline. And if you look into statistics, according to the Hong Kong Police, since November 2020, there has been 90,000 tips received regarding national security related issues. So we don't know how many people from Hong Kong call the security hotline and how many of them are actually living abroad. But that is what we know regarding the latest statistics. And also the second concerning element of this extraterritoriality is that there are the issuance of 3 rounds of bounties, which is worth 128,000 US dollars with each person on the wanted list. So the Hong Kong police in particular issued that wanted list in July 2023, and then less than 6 months later in December 2023, and then last year it was in December 2024, which is around the period of Christmas. And also there is, in addition to the high-profile exiled activists, which are part of listed as the bounty being wanted by the Hong Kong police, and also there's this first extraterritorial case that essentially there was a Hong Kong female student who studied in Japan. She wrote some posts about Hong Kong independence, and when she returned to Hong Kong, she was arrested for the so-called violation of the national security law. So I'm not going to use up all 15 minutes because I understand that this is a very complicated matter. First, you have to understand Hong Kong's domestic status and also international status. Then you have to understand what is the PRC national security agenda, the whole 20 fields of operation, and how that applies to Hong Kong within the one country, two systems principle. And also thirdly, about the power diplomatic status of Hong Kong in the world. So I don't think I can go too so deep into the core of the matter. But I think to conclude with my presentation, I would like to make a statement that moving forward, what we can look into is, however, that it's not just about the human rights violation and also how these apparatus are actually suppressing free press and also freedom of speech in general, but actually it's more about the fundamental question of how this Hong Kong as a British inherited institution having the feature of PRC mirrored authoritarianism within this second largest economy, how financially resourceful this city of Hong Kong is being used by the PRC to conduct act that is protecting the political survival of the CCP. And I think that will be the area that I would like to open for discussion in the upcoming Q&A section. So thank you for listening, and also thank you for translating. Gracias.